channel. Let's build some boxes. These can be nailed together. Today, once again, I'm going to be using a brad nailer. Want some glue. Any white indoor extra or interior exterior glue would be just fine. Once again, I like tight bond. I have my corner clamps. You saw those when we were building the nuke box. They're really going to come in handy here. And of course, I got some long clamps because I want to make sure these things are clamped together good and firm in order before I nail them together. So one of the other thing I should have mentioned is through all of this, you can buy different grade boxes from your supplier. So I buy the pine. They call these nude pine. So basically they're unpainted, they're ready to go. But some of them will have what they call bottom shelf boxes. The only difference between, say, a bottom shelf box and the top boxes are there'll be some small minor flaws in them. I don't mind the flaws. In fact, I kind of like the flaws. And really, by the time we hit these with a sander, we're going to hit these with a belt sander and clean them all up. They come out looking pretty darn sharp. So don't be afraid to save yourself a little bit of money. Once again, we're trying to do this on whatever your budget is. So don't be afraid to save yourself a little bit of money. And we can clean it all up with a sander at the end. So we're going to start by building a medium box and a deep box. So we'll start with the medium first. And once again, you're going to want to make sure you glue everything. So on these, there's a handle. So they're different types, but make sure the handle is set so that they're all going to go up. And you're going to have two long ones for the sides and two shorter ones for the ends. Now the end ones are going to be notched on the top. They have a handle, but they're going to be notched on the top. And the reason they're notched on the top is, as we discussed before, when we put them together, our frames hang on that notch. Okay, so you can kind of see how that sits in there. So make sure the notch is to the top so that the frame and everything can hang in there. And then take some time just to figure out exactly how they fit together. So, you know, some of them are going to be fairly snug. This one here is not too bad. And you're going to want to glue these only, you know, you don't want to have glue on the ends. So you're only going to want to glue them down inside. Okay? So, let's put this one together. I've had a couple comments on my glue brush, but it works. All right, handles up. Yeah, we're just gonna work it together. And you guys heard me say I like these clamps. That's where these clamps now really start to come in handy. And we're just going to work our way around. We're going to take the other long side, make sure the handle goes up, and we're going to work it into place. Little glue squeezes out, just wipe it up. And if you notice, I'm not putting these clamps really tight quite yet, and you'll see why. And now for the last side. So you might want to build a couple of these. Once again, you pretty much need one for your brood box, you need one for your honey super, but if you're not going to be like myself, you're going to have regular flames, you can either pull the frames out or you can just replace the frames. So if you don't want to have extra boxes kicking around, maybe storage or something like that, there's other ways that you can do this as well. I just wanted to make sure I was gluing the right places here. And handle up. I also need this one. This one here, when you get to the last one, you might actually find it's just a little bit harder to get in and might have to tap it in a little bit. I'll just get a hammer. Be careful to make sure it's lined up so that you don't end up splitting the wood. Now we'll put our last two clamps on here, because what that does, check with our square, those clamps keep everything nice and square. Now what I'm going to do with these is I want to make sure that I pull it together really good before I nail it. Depending as to when the wood was cut, or you know, if these were stored outside and then of course I bring it into my nice warm dry garage, sometimes they warp a little bit. It is not painted, so, but that's exactly what we wanted. All right. Make sure everything is down nice and snug. Now I'm using 2-inch brad nails. You can use screws. Some people prefer to screw them. I like to brad nail them. And I will brad nail every one. Just have to move my clamp now that I got that one down and work my way down. Sorry about the compressor. Coming apart this way. All right, everything's nice and tight. Now we'll just do it the other way. Now we have them nailed in from both ends. We're just going to make sure they're good all the way around. All of our joints are nice and tight. Looks good from the inside. Now, I must have lost a clamp. Now we're just going to make sure that we clamp these corners up really good, because this is what's going to keep it square while it dries. And then we're going to nail every joint. I should mention too, on the ends where the top is, you don't want the nail to come through where your boards are going to hang. So just keep that in mind when you're when you're nailing it in. And I also like to put one down from the top on each corner and up from the bottom on each corner. Just work our way around, make sure we got them all. This bottom one's coming apart a little bit. Just clamp it together before we nail it in. We'll do the same to the other side and nail it up. That one we've got. All right. We'll make sure we wipe down any excess glue that may have squeezed out. We don't have much here, but all right. That box is done. We will set this one aside until it's dried. Okay, while that one's drying, we'll put the other one together here. Once again, two ends. They're notched out, and then two sides. So they're both longer. Once again, all the handles. So let's start with one end, just like we did last time. So there are lots of videos out there on this. As you guys all know, I like YouTube. I do a lot of watching of different YouTube. I've learned a lot of stuff off of YouTube, and I've learned a lot of beekeeping stuff off of YouTube. So I just, what I'm doing isn't new. I just thought it would be neat to work with you right from the very beginning all the way through to the end of harvesting some honey. So let's see how that goes this year. There we go, just kind of working it all together. Dig out another set of clamps here. And off to the next one. Make sure I do this the right way, or else it gets really difficult to put them together. Make sure the handle's the right way. And then we'll clamp it together. I don't know if you can see, this is why I use the clamps. You kind of see how there's a gap there, which is why I'll use those clamps and stuff like that in the end as well. I want to make sure it goes together nice and tight. You don't have to. If you get it a little bit loose, it's not the end of the world. The bees will just use propolis and they'll seal it all up. And make sure the handles are the right way. A little persuasion to make it all come together. time for our clamps again. All right. And let's just make sure we got it where we want it now. You have to make sure you're on the right part of the box joint there. Make sure I'm not out of nails. I've done that once or twice. Now the bottom I see here is coming apart both ways, so we're going to clamp it both ways. Once again, because we want it to be good and tight. Persuasion. Everything fit right in place. Double check we're square. These corner clamps sure are nice for that. And let's make sure it doesn't come apart. All right. We're going to have to work our way around this box. This piece is a little bit warped, so we're just going to have to take it one side at a time. And sometimes you get a few boxes like this. It's not the end of the world. We just have to take our time putting them together. Put a couple nails in the bottom of this while it's put together. And I guess I'll have to reclamp it. Like I say, it does happen from time to time. And they don't have to be perfect. I just like them as close as I can get. And besides, I think you might want these as close as I can get it too. Two sides down, two sides to go. I'm working on it this way. Unfortunately, you can't see everything, but I just really don't want to have my back to you. So, hope that's all right with most of the viewers out there. That sometimes is the unfortunate part with using these extra long brad nails is sometimes they come out, but the good news is because I just used the 18 gauge ones, you can easily push these into the wood and squeeze them off, and then when we run over this with the sander, they're going to disappear anyways. Okay, everything is looking nice and tight there now. We can go ahead and nail it all up. Put that in there maybe so that you can see how everything is nice and square. No play anywhere. Nice and square. All right, we'll wipe the excess glue off of this. We'll set it over to dry with the medium. All right, so that's our medium and our super built. So we've got the super for our brood box, we've got the medium for our honey box. Let's build some frames for him. So I'm not going to keep you here to do them all. I'm just going to do a couple of each. So once again, I just definitely don't want to use the 2-inch brad nails for that. I do use the brad nails, but I'm just going to go grab some 1-inch. All right. So once again, the only difference between the brood box, so in this case the super, and our honey box, which is the medium, is the side of the end, or the length of the ends. So let's grab some of these. Once again, glue everything up. So these, you just have to glue the insides. I do have another jug of glue. Maybe it's time to switch to it. There we go. So we're going to need 2 for each frame. So there's a top and a bottom. So I glued the top, and the top has the frame where there's going to hang over. So there's a groove in the bottom where the foundation goes in. So, and there's a groove on both sides where these here will fit over. So these just literally fit over them, and wiggle them down in there. They're going to go nice and snug so that they're nice and flush on the top. And then the same thing on the other side. And they, once again, they will wiggle right down in there. If need be, you can give them a little bit of a smack. Now, I nail these a little bit different than I've seen on there. These, when you're full of honey, and if you're going to spin them in a centrifugal spinner, there's a lot of G-force that goes on these. If you can imagine these, in the spinner, and these things are spinning around, all of the weight's coming up against it, so we don't want them to come apart. So there's a groove in the center, of which we don't want to nail. Okay, so let's go with 1 each side. All right. Now, some of the heavier frames you could nail in from the end, but when I did that, I found that my brad nail started to come in through to where the foundation will go in. So I'll show you what I'll do. So first, we're going to put the bottom in. So the bottom, it's a much thinner piece. It doesn't have anything for it to hang on. It does have the groove for the foundation, but it, once again, will just work on in there. Make sure they're going nice and snug. And don't be afraid if you have to. Give them a tap. I put a nail, once again, each side. You know, I've been told I overbuild them, but I've never had them come apart either. Now here's where the square comes in. I'll put the square on the top, and as you can see, that one's not square. So I'm going to make sure that we square these up now, and then I'm going to put a nail right straight through in the corner. Now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can see this side here is just about already square. And then I'm going to do the same on the bottom. So I usually mix it up on the opposite side. Once again, make sure it's square. And then on the same on the other side. Once again, make sure it's square. So now what this has done is there's a nail so it won't pull out. There's nails here so it can't pull out either way. And we now have a frame mount. This is for our honey frame. it'll take probably the yellow foundation or a foundation strip. So I'd mentioned that you can put a piece of wood in here. You can also take a piece of wax foundation right here if you wanted. You could cut that down, you know, so it was only say 1/2 inch, and you could glue that in there with wax and the bees would build on it. You could put this wax one in there. It goes in kind of the same way. If you are going to use the wax, you're probably going to want to wire them in. So there's little holes on the end where you would use stainless steel wire, and a wire is going to go down one each side so that it doesn't flop out. The bees will just build the wax right over it, and they'll think nothing more of it. So I don't use the wax very often. So anyways, that's a medium. And as I mentioned, the only difference between the two, let's build a super frame now. Once again, going to glue the top. They're done the exact same way. Right, we have the piece that's just going to work on down in there, both sides. Give them a tap. And there we have it. We built a medium for our honey chamber, a full super for our brood chamber, and of course these are 10 frame boxes, so we need to build 10 of each. I will build those, and by then the box should be done. I'm not going to bore you with that though. I'll probably speed a whole bunch of this up. All right, well, our boxes have all dried. I've made up 10 frames for each box, 10 frames for our brood box, 10 frames for our honey box. The only thing we have left to do is put our foundation in. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to use the yellow foundation for our honey box. They just, I think you've seen me do this before, they just slip right in, and then you can squeeze them and they'll just pop right into position here. That will complete our honey super. And the same thing with the brood box. Now both these foundation I have already pre-coated with wax. So I'll make a video going forward as to how I did that. There are lots out there on the internet as well, but I'll show you exactly how I did it for those of you that are following along. Once again, just slips in the track in the bottom. We have or on the top I should say, we have the track in the bottom. And these are flexible enough that you can literally just bend them and they will pop right into the track. So I've completed both. So that completes the two boxes, our brood box and our honey super. And as you can see, I also sanded these down. So they're pretty much finished, ready to be painted up and ready to go into our apiary. So the next section, we'll probably build our hive stand. So for those of you that are following along, glad to have you here. For those of you that are new, please, if you want to follow along, hit that subscribe button down below. Any comments you have, please put them down below. I'll try to get back to everybody's comments within a day or two. But we've got these boxes done, so we will continue getting our hive ready for our bees, packages, or nuke, whatever we've ordered here coming forward. So once again, thank you for following along, and we'll see you next time.